Welcome to the BritAsia podcast. Now, every week we bring on some of the biggest kind of guests from the industry, the world, and the arts of all sorts. But today we have a legend from 90s television. If you watch the likes of Brookside, if you watch the likes of The Bill, you know who this guy is. Today, I'm joined by the legend, Usher. Paul, welcome to BritAsia TV.
Pleasure to be here.
Look, there's a lot we want to talk about. You know, I think the reason for bringing you on today isn't just kind of talking about your kind of journey in showbiz. It's to talk about kind of your personal journey of, you know, the loss of your son, how you, your partner, your family kind of cope with that. And, you know, what you guys are doing now to kind of, you know, keep his memory alive and kind of support other families. But let's kind of take it right to the start of, you know, the 90s, which is kind of like the golden years for TV.
80s.
80s, okay. I don't give away my age, but
1982 is when Brookside actually started.
way before I was even born, right? No, Brookside was an iconic soap. You made your name in Brookside. From Brookside, you kind of transitioned into another popular soap, which was The Bill, which again, in the 90s, it just got bigger and bigger and bigger when you kind of entered the frame. But let's kind of talk about kind of the world of soap. You know, it was a massive thing part of British television. Every evening, people used to watch it. You know, how was your kind of journey into it and your transition?
Well, I got into it totally by accident. I'd been touring with a band around America. I'd done all the social clubs up in the north, up in Newcastle for a week, playing all the working men's clubs and labour clubs. Not many conservative clubs up there. So I did that, and then when I came back, I was in the Equity Union, and a letter popped through my door, and it said, come for an audition for Brookside. So I went, and about 3 auditions later, I got the job.
Was it a career that you kind of saw yourself doing? Because obviously you mentioned, you know, you were touring as a musician. Was acting ever something they kind of thought?
No,
Kind of,
I had never any visions of becoming an actor.
yeah.
Which you could probably tell if you watched the first few episodes of Brookside, because it wasn't very good.
Yeah.
In fact, I don't know whether it improved over the years, but anyway, something in me clicked when I got told that the eyes are the window to your soul. And so if you are looking at someone and meaning what you say, then hopefully, you know, that will come across in what you say, and people will believe what you say.
Yeah. And did you ever do much acting in like acting school? Like once you started, obviously in Brookside, did you ever go to drama school to kind of improve, or was it just on the job learning?
You didn't get time to do anything. When you were working on Brookside, you'd be in at 7 and you maybe finish at 7 at night.
Yeah.
And then you'd have to go home and learn all your lines for the next day. And we were doing like, say, 9-10 minutes of television a day.
Oh.
Well, if you tried to recount 10 minutes of our conversation, it's a hard thing to do, you know, and to learn it. And so by the time it came down to the weekend, you know, you just wanted to let loose.
Do you think it's a myth that, you know, everyone needs to go to acting school to learn to act? You know, people say, you know, if you want to become an actor, you have to go to drama school. You have to go to acting school. Do you think it's a myth, or do you think it's just kind of the industry is that in demand now, where people will basically exploit those avenues to kind of bring people in, charge them X amount, and then, you know, whether they get a career out of it, it's entirely up to that person?
I think obviously when you go to acting school, they'll put you. My nephew, well, I want to say my nephew, my wife's nephew, he's been to acting school and went to Brit school, and you know, has done everything. And he has got far more range than what I have in what he could do. But if you find a little niche, you know, in the market, as it were, then, you know, obviously that's great. But in some respects, I would have liked to have gone and done it.
Yeah.
But like I say, once you're on the treadmill, as it is, you know, you just keep going.
Yeah. Now, 90s, obviously, the 80s and 90s was massive, obviously, TV. I'd say it was what you guys created in the 90s and 80s. Now, it's not a thing. That's my personal belief. How did you kind of find it when you was out in the public? Because obviously back then, a lot of more people were watching TV compared to now, where people stream more, whether it's Netflix, whether it's, you know, Amazon, etc. Did you kind of find that, you know, overnight, you have more people approaching you, you're now in the public eye more? So,
well, back in 1982, there was only 3 channels.
yeah.
And in November of 1982, there became 4. And Brookside was on that first night. And so you were probably getting 7, 8, 9 million people were watching it.
Yeah.
So it did take us by surprise, you know, how popular it was. I mean, the likes of George Michael and people like that were putting Brookside as my favourite programme, and you know, all like really respected actors or musicians or whatever, even MPs, you know, they loved it. And yeah, it was but at that time, for me personally, I didn't like it. I didn't like the notoriety. You know, I thought, well, I'm just doing a job.
Yeah.
I couldn't understand it. But
one thing I want to kind of talk about off the back end of this, obviously with shows get cancelled, etc., is, you know, attitudes across the industry. You know, you're working with people across different, like ITV, for example. Let's talk about this, how many kind of shows, series, people, prominent figures in ITV. You know, how is it working with different people? Like, you know, do certain people have bigger egos than others? Like, you know, if you have I don't know, a breakfast show, for example, versus an evening show or lunchtime show, did you ever cross paths with other kind of...
You did every now and again, but the thing about it is you can't afford to have an ego in when you're doing these shows, because they're relentless. You were working like you know, 7 in the morning till 7 at night, and you've got to get on with people, you know, and you've got to make things work. I mean, there would be every now and again, there would be, you know, little disagreements or whatever, but nothing bad, you know, because you had to make things work with people. And that's when you got always, as an actor, if you work with someone well and say somebody's got something more important than me to say, I would make it so that they did look better, because in the end that makes you look better. You know, but there would be, you know, you did work with an actor every now and again who was trying to, you know, if you're doing a 2 shot and they'd be like pulling themselves so they got into shot, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Because obviously, you know, it was important to them. But like I say, acting is a collaboration.
And just on that, like ITV right now, they're in the headlines for all the wrong reasons. And Schofield is someone that's obviously in the headlines himself. You know, we spoke off air, like, you know, you went on this morning, etc. You know, first question I want to ask, and this is just for my sake, is was Schofield like that when we first met him? And secondly, do you think ITV is kind of getting the brunt of failures, or it's just media kind of making it something worse than what it is? Like,
well, I mean, in the big scheme of things, what does it matter? You know.
Yeah.
It's, you know, to me, they were making, you know, we've got front page headlines of, this was before it came out about the fact that he had the affair with the younger lad. You know, it was Holly and Phil are getting on, like, you know, so what? You know, personally, I couldn't care whether they were getting on or they weren't getting on. The fact that, you know, it's said that he hasn't done anything that's illegal, you know, or by law, but it's not really cool for the, you know, 50-odd-year-old fella to be knocking around with a teenager, in my eyes. Although, you know, I mean, they didn't object to, what's the actor called who had a really young, Stephen Fry. You know, he's got someone who's like 25 years his junior. You know, I mean, if these people are getting on, you know, what's it to do with us? Yeah, just let them be.
Is there like a safeguarding in showbiz?
Not that I've. There is they have chaperones for the younger kids or whatever in the, you know. I think it's going to be more prevalent now after all of this going on, you know. Every time something happens, then they'll put another safeguard in to make sure that they don't get in trouble.
Of course. Now, obviously, look, we've spoken about kind of the highs, but let's kind of talk about something, you know, the lows. And I think a big moment in your life was the loss of your son. You know, from a South Asian perspective and South Asian side of the community, like as a community, we don't grieve at all, in my opinion. Well, we don't talk about things. We don't talk about death, especially. You know, how was it for you guys when, you know, that day came, when suddenly it's a case of, you know, your son has passed away?
Well, initially, I didn't believe it. When I got told, I mean, my wife at the time told me, and I just said, "No, you must be wrong." And I then phoned the girl whose company he worked for, and I said, "Look, I've just been told this that he's died." I said, "You must have it wrong," because it is unbelievable. You know, you just can't get the magnitude of it. And I just, after I put the phone down, I had to walk down the road, and then I just let out like the biggest visceral cry that you would ever hear in your life. I don't even know where it came from. It was just something that I couldn't control, but something that I had to let out.
Why do you think it's so hard for, like, I'm not talking about just men in the South Asian community, just men in general, to let their emotions out? It's like we have this kind of stigma across all communities that men should be alpha, men shouldn't react. But when we talk about kind of mental well-being and stuff, like keeping stuff bottled in, long term has more damage to someone.
I think men don't help each other, do they?
Yeah.
In terms of they aren't open. I mean, when for the first few weeks, I mean, we were talking early on before about, you said that you had a slight speech impediment when you were younger. After my son died, I got a stammer and had it for like a couple of months and couldn't get rid of it. And I don't know where it came from, and I don't know when it disappeared either. It's a weird thing to explain.
And you know, how was it kind of impact on your relationship with your partner? Because it's not something that you go through alone. It impacts you, your partner, even your extended family.
Well, I wasn't with his mum then. We'd already split up. But we kind of went through that grief together because we were the only ones who understood it. You know, no one, unless you've been through it yourself, no one can understand it. I mean, I had known friends of mine who had lost children. Two friends who'd lost children before, and now I understood what that kind of, that part of them that was missing when you were talking to them, because there was always that part of them that they couldn't give you anymore. They weren't the same person, and you aren't the same person because you carry this thing round. I say it's like you've got a haversack on your back full of grief, and over the years the haversack gets lighter, but it never goes away.
And in terms of the kind of resources out there, do you think there's enough out there to help parents with this? Because I'd probably say in the last, say, 10 years or so, mental health has only kind of come to light more than what it should have been. Like, how many people over these years had mental health issues and people just weren't able to diagnose it? People weren't able to diagnose a lot of things. But now with, the grievance of a child, do you think there's enough out there to kind of help parents? And I mean, anything from like, from childbirth to, older.
I think if you really need it and you want to get better, then you'll go and find it. I think it's a lot more accessible these days.
Yeah.
I think, me personally, I have never sat down with anyone professional to talk about it because I've found solace in other ways. And I was lucky in the respect that I have another son from my relationship now. And so all the love that I would have probably given to my son who died, I doubled up on him. And I also, my son died at 26, but he left me 3 grandkids. So I give them that love and make the most of them. And so that that helps you, because that helps you want to move on. Because like, you have them thoughts of why him, why has he got to go, why not me? Because if someone had come to me and said, look, you've got to die tomorrow, and he doesn't die, well, I would die. Simple as that. I wouldn't, I wouldn't question it. Yeah. The gravity of your firstborn dying, it's like, it's tough.
And then if we kind of talk a little bit about healing, how did you heal? How did you because obviously you mentioned you didn't get any professional help, but what help did you get to kind of get you onto those steps of letting you heal?
Time. Time's a healer.
Yeah.
Time's a healer. And you've got to put your mind forward. You've got to move on, but also have him with you. I go where I live now, I go for a walk, and he was born on the 6th, and there's like rows and rows of apple trees, and I always walk through the 6th row of the apple tree, and I talk to him, and I say, I've seen the kids, I talk to our Louis, talk to our Ella, our Ruben, and it's like, I find solace in that. But like I said to you before, I said, give the analogy of the haversack. It's still,
Do you think it's okay, and would you encourage men to kind of cry? And by that, I mean, like, crying is probably the emotion that kind of lets a lot of stuff out. But men don't believe, a lot of alpha men, and I say that across some communities, men don't cry.
I'm not a big cry.
Yeah.
I mean, I did cry when he died, but I didn't really do it in front of anyone else. But I didn't consciously stop myself from doing it.
Cool.
Because it has to be, it's a natural phenomenon, isn't it? If you want to cry over something, then you will cry. But I don't think I've ever cried. I've been a crier, should I say? I just haven't. But yes, I mean, what my friends I was looking at them and they were kind of crying more than me, but then I didn't question, well, why aren't you crying? Maybe it's just that that's not the way I'm built. But what I think is, if people are emotional, I know people who are more given to that, but that's fine as well. If you want to show it in that way, no one should be turning around to anyone and saying, well, why aren't you doing something, showing your grief in some particular way?
Yeah.
There's no hard and fast rules for anything in life. People are people, and they're all different.
Yeah. Now, obviously, we are running short of time, but let's kind of move on to, what you're doing now. Your involvement in the South Asian community, especially the Punjabi community, and a football tournament that you guys have been putting on for the last few years. You're spreading awareness, you're bringing communities together. Talk us about how you got involved into, especially the South Asian community.
Well, I got involved. It was a friend of mine was in Birmingham who met a guy called Arjinder Mali.
Yeah.
and we got on. He was actually trying to get me to do business when we first met. And he was had some clothing, and I managed to sneak a few of his pieces onto the TV. And he still hasn't paid me. And we just developed a relationship from there. I have been coming down to Handsworth and Soho Road and for like 35 years or something. And his family brought me into their family. Like all his nephews and everything used to come up to North Wales when I was living up there, and we would take them up on the mountains and have a great time. And I have been to all of the funerals, the weddings, and they've been really kind to make me part of their family as well, and they are part of mine.
Awesome.
And when my son died, we kind of said, well, what can we do to honour him? And say, well, everyone loves football, we all love football, let's play a game. So it'll be 8 years ago now, we had our first game at Colwyn Bay Football Club in Old Colwyn in North Wales, and the Punjabis, the community just got coaches and came up, and we had, I don't know, maybe 1,500 or something at the game. And then since then it's just got bigger and bigger every year. And it's great because the Mali family come and cook a pot. Everyone gets involved. Now what's happened from that is, as people have come together, the younger ones have piled up, and they see each other and they're good friends, and so what it does is it makes this like
a community
community spirit, and it makes people understand each other. And they're living in North Wales, there's not that many Asian people living up there. But it gives them an understanding, and it brings them into their world. I'm lucky that I've been involved in it for a long time, and I know so many of the lads, and that they're all really cool people. And so we were playing this game this year in Birmingham, because we've been in North Wales for the last 8 years. So this year we said, right, well, we'll bring it to Birmingham. And then further to that, there's one of the lads who had been very kind and donated a lot of money over the years. And then unfortunately he lost his son 18 months ago. And so the game is also, as well as my son James, because we'll have it in Birmingham this year, it's also for his son Arjun. And he's got to go through,
same healing process.
The same thing. And so so this year we're in Birmingham, and we're going to put the details up, I hope, after
100%.
After our little chat. And we'd be really grateful to see, people to come along. And obviously it's all for charity. We're doing it for the British Heart Foundation. And we look forward to, what we look forward to is the people are coming down from North Wales and from all over the country, from Newcastle and wherever else, Yorkshire. And we're going to come and make one big party in celebration, and that's how we keep the memory going
and the healing going as well, most importantly. Awesome. Paul, it's been an absolute pleasure having you here today. I think what you're doing for just communities in general is absolutely amazing. What you're doing to honor your son, Arjun as well, is absolutely beautiful, and I'm sure many people will take inspiration from yourself and take it as a step forward to help their own healing as well. But look, the mic's yours. If there's anything you want to say to kind of sign out to anybody that is in the position that you was in when you first lost your son, the mic's yours. And
well, what I would say is, if you want help, you've got to help yourself. You've got to start with yourself, because once you make you strong, that will filter down to everyone else. And if you show them that you're coping and that you can get to the next place, hopefully everyone else will follow along with you.
Beautiful. Guys, you've been watching BritAsia TV. My name's Tej, Paul Usher. Thank you so much.